All right, so we'll wait just a couple minutes for some people to come in. We're excited about our monthly webinar tonight with the Rooted Cafe and Taurus Sisters. So we'll wait just a minute here and see if people pop on. I'm excited to have you here tonight, Amy.
Hi, friend.
It's going to be a good conversation. All right, I'm just going to see what we've got going on. Oh, we've got people in. Hey, Misty, how are you, friend? Hi, Kayla. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Stephanie, and all else who are on. I had to use my phone tonight because the internet wasn't working so great, so I cannot see everyone. But we want to welcome you to our monthly Rooted Cafe webinar. I'm Jen, if you don't know me, and I am super excited to be hosting a friend of mine who a lot of you, I think, know, Amy Guenther. And Amy and I actually are fortunate enough, or I should say I'm fortunate enough, that I get to feast and Shabbat with Amy because we live 30 minutes apart from each other. So her and I have gotten to know each other. And before we knew each other, I was very familiar with Taurus Sisters, which you all probably are very familiar with. And if not, you need to check out her TaurusSisters.com website. But Charlie and I wanted to invite Amy tonight. We talked about it a few months ago. She is just another sister out there who's doing everything she can to help encourage women in this journey, in this Torah walk, this lifestyle that we love. And here, if you don't know Amy, I just want to tell you my impression of Amy. And she hasn't heard me say this, but I think she won't be surprised, is that Amy is really practical. And if you watch her YouTube channel, you know that she just asks the most interesting yet basic questions about this journey and this lifestyle. And then she gives you practical applications to walk it out. So I want to just start, Amy, by introducing you as my sister, Amy Guenther from TaurusSisters.com. And I know you told me earlier today you started Taurus Sisters in 2011, but can you just, if people don't know you, can you just give us a couple minute synopsis of, you know, your background and how Taurus Sisters came to be an actual thing?
All right. Hi, everybody. So Jen and I just spent the feast together like over a week. And Jen, I didn't tell you this, but after we got in the car, not long later, I was talking about all the people and my kids said, Mom, you and Mrs. Doobie are a lot alike. And I said,
I'm
how
so honored.
and they thought, I said, well, how? You have to explain that. And they finally came up to like, we can be really serious and intense, but we can also, like, we're not afraid to be vocal and say what we want to say, but we're also can be total goofballs. Because we did some goofball-y things, but it was fun.
Midnight matzah pizza. That's my favorite memory from Unleavened Bread. Every night, Amy Guenther's in the kitchen making midnight matzah pizza, and I was right there with her.
We wore aprons a lot. I know tonight I almost was like, I should just go to Jen's house and actually sit at the kitchen table with her because we live so close. So this is my kitchen table. Behind me are our homeschool shelves. They're a mess, but this is my real life. And yeah, I'm Amy Guenther. I do TaurusSisters.com. I think, like she said, a lot of you have heard of it. And I started it. I'll tell you the story how I started it. In 2013, I came to Torah. So it must have been 2014 that this all started. And when I first came to Torah, I was married then, and my husband was not on board. And I'm sure some of you are in the same situation. There's so many sisters in that situation. And I just realized really quick that I was not supposed to just, harp on it all the time, but I just did my best. And I submitted to what he said I could do or couldn't do. And anyway, I have videos about that whole topic, but I was just, bursting inside with excitement and enthusiasm. And I just wanted to shout it from the mountaintops. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Like, at least I wanted to, because all my friends now had all these new friends on Facebook, Torah keeping friends. And every Friday they would say on Facebook, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. It's not such a thing now, but back in 2014, like everybody said Shabbat Shalom on Facebook on Friday nights. But I was kind of like doing it a little bit under the radar and not real open because of John. So, but I was like just bursting inside. And so I asked him, I said, can I just start a Facebook page, like incognito? I'll call it, I don't know, Torah Sisters, and nobody will know it's me. I won't use my real name. And I'll just like say happy Sabbath and stuff like that and just talk. He goes, yeah, that's fine. So that's how it started. I just was bursting with enthusiasm to say Shabbat Shalom. And very quickly I realized whatever we think we're going through, it's probably not unique to us. There's probably other women going through it or thinking the same or having the same struggles, at least someone. And I realized very quickly I was probably not the only woman kind of like in a difficult situation like that. So I just wanted right away to encourage those other women. And so I started just with like Shabbat Shalom memes, but it quickly turned into like just encouraging memes. And I just started loving making memes. I just like went crazy with the memes. And I learned a little bit of graphic design, which I had done some website design and stuff like that before. And it just snowballed. People would see a meme and they would share it. You know how that goes. And then they would like the page, and then they would share more memes, and then more people would like the Facebook page. So for a long time, it was just a Facebook page with memes. And once in a while I would type something or nothing deep, nothing other than just encouraging, like, let's just do this together kind of. It kept growing and growing. And then I made a website, and then I started doing like free printables. So if you go to TorahSisters.com later, don't go now, go later. There's a lot of like free printables there, like free little cutesy signs that you can print and put on your fridge or whatever. And so I started doing those, and that was fun, and it still is fun. And it just kept growing. And so I can't remember the order of everything, but that's where it came from. I just wanted to encourage women who I have these two things in common with: women who keep Torah, who know that we're supposed to do that, and then women who follow Yeshua as their Messiah, come in the flesh and as the source of their salvation, Yeshua. So those are the ladies I like to hang out with.
Can I ask you a couple questions just to kind of prod a little bit deeper? So when you came into Torah, did you know anyone else? I mean, how did you know what you were doing? Because I know for me, when I came into it, it was 6 months before I even knew that it had a name, right? So when you came into it and you had mentioned to John that you wanted to, do this, did you know other women, or was it more you did it so you could seek other women who were doing what you were doing?
So everybody's story is different, and nobody's story or testimony is more better than anyone else's. Here's my plain old regular story. I had a friend who lives actually right around here, and she started posting this crazy stuff on Facebook right around Christmas 2013. But at the end of, she was posting about Torah, we're supposed to do Sabbath and stuff. And but at the end of everything, she said, don't take my word for it. Go look at the scriptures. Everything I'm saying is in the Bible. And so I thought she was fallen from grace and going to hell and unsaved now because she was under the Old Testament law. But I was really intrigued that she held up scripture as the authority, because I too was like, sola scriptura. And so I decided, I don't know, something in me was just drawn to pull her back into being under grace and not under the law, and to save her. And I thought, well, if she believes that scripture is the authority, then it's going to be easy, because I know the scripture says that we don't have to keep the law. So long story short, I read my Bible as fast as I could, studied and studied and studied. And because she was posting stuff, I did know about others. So I ended up obviously deciding this is for today. And then I sort of like came out to her. So I knew her. And at the same time, another friend of hers was doing the exact same thing I was doing, who had seen like the exact same situation. And she lives in the Lansing area too. So we all sort of like did our first Passover around the same time and helped. And so I knew about websites like 119 Ministries, TestEverything.net, and they have as you guys know, very practical videos about how do we even do this? But I remember very clearly, finally one night, I got on my knees crying, and I told the Father, I said, I don't know how to do this stuff, but I'm going to try. And that's one of the practical things I try to encourage ladies is don't get bogged down in the how-to until you've decided to try. Otherwise it won't make sense and it won't work. And you're putting the cart before the horse. So I decided to try, and then I did have lots of resources for the house.
So this is what we really want to talk about tonight. So when I called Amy and I'm like, okay, will you do this, monthly webinar with me? And what do you want to talk about? Because she is the queen of practical Torah, right? And it took her a while to get back with me. It took her a few days because she really wanted to think on it. And, Amy and I've had this conversation before, and I've had this conversation with numerous of you who will watch this webinar, whether you're on now or watch it later in the cafe, is that people do things differently. We have different calendars. We have different ways we usher in Shabbat. We have all of this. And, I'm not judging anyone either, but I'm just going to say we come out of, religion, and most of us come into this and we're super excited. Like, wow, the Father's opened up our eyes. We've learned something new. We are hungry for truth. We want to dig really deep. But people come into it at different paces, and they see different things at different times. And even in our own fellowship, Amy and I have maybe, 70-ish people, 80-ish people in our fellowship. And we didn't even do the same Passover all together and stuff. But what we want to talk about tonight is not letting other people's opinion of your journey negatively impact you. And I think this is important because we can feel judged by other people in Torah and out of Torah. And I'm not sure which way Amy is going to go. I can't wait to hear it. But I think, ladies, listen up, because we all need this. We all need to understand that when we feel like the Father has given us truth, we don't wrap our heads and get all confused by what everyone else around us is saying. We walk in what he tells us to do, and we want to be led by the Spirit, and it's going to look different. So I'm not going to say any more, Amy, but I'm excited to hear what you have to share. And if I introduced it wrong, please correct me, but let's just talk about people judging us in our walk. And I'm just going to let you go with what you had in your mind and on your heart from the Father to share.
Okay, but first, I have to answer Charlie's question earlier. So can I tell you a little bit more about Torah Sisters and where it is now? So
absolutely.
I'm a single mom. I am a registered nurse. And because my husband ended up leaving me, and it was not, well, I think in the spiritual world, it was because I was keeping Torah. I think the enemy realized that I was a big threat. And when the enemy sees someone that's a threat, he wants to break up families. And so he broke up my family. But so he left years ago, and I'm a single mom. I've been working as a registered nurse at a local hospital. I had to quit that job back in September for a lot of reasons that you guys can probably sort of guess. And then we all got COVID really bad and then recovered from that. And then I got another job working part-time, and I was working at home as a nurse. Mostly I do these like charts. It's really kind of boring, but interesting. Like I audit charts from home, and it was a great job, but I got another job and they just never gave me hours. Jen walked this with me for months. I would go to Shabbat and I would say, yay, praise item. I got this great new job. It's still working at home. They don't require anything. And it's great. And it's going to be part-time. And then the next week I was like, well, they don't have hours yet, but they tell me next week. And then that kept going on and on for like, what, Jen, 3 or 4 months. They never gave me more than 3 hours in a week. I can't take care of my kids on that. So back when I quit my nursing, the first job, I started being like, okay, maybe it is okay to actually sell more stuff on Torah Sisters, because I've been reluctant to sell much on Torah Sisters. I've just been giving stuff away free for years and years and years. But if any of you have a website, it's not, Charlie knows, there is like overhead of having any kind of a presence online. Not any kind, but most this. And so I started selling stuff. And in the last 6 months, I have gone from having really no income and even being in the hole with Torah Sisters to now, you guys, it's paying the rent. And so, Charlie, to answer your question, I quit that little job that was silly and never gave me any hours. I quit that about a month ago, and now I'm just doing Torah Sisters, and it's paying the rent. And yesterday my washing machine broke and I have money for a new washing machine, Jen.
Crazy, yeah.
Isn't that something? Yeah, I'm just like in awe. And so the Torres sisters, and I'm sure many of you are in there, have been so good to me. The Father has blessed me through all of you. And I am just in awe. So I'm still working part-time. I mean, I could work full-time. You know how it is, Charlie, like you can just go crazy. But I don't want to. I want to homeschool and be more there for my kids. So I'm still hustling, and nothing makes you hustle more than being broke. So
That's
the
true.
Father brought me right to that place of having no job, because I think he wanted me to do more of this. So with more time, I can do more with Torres sisters. Duh. So I am loving it. I am just feeling beyond blessed. And if it's okay, can I show you some of the stuff that I have now on my website?
Yeah, let's see it.
So I sell Bible verse. What?
Yeah.
I sell Bible verse. They're postcards, but some people just put them in frames around their house. So I sell those. Like, they're all pretty. I like to make things all pretty.
Amy, I have to tell you something about the postcards. When we got back from Unleavened Bread, within a week, 2 people had sent me the postcards that you gave away. I got 2 postcards the same week, and I was like, this is amazing. And I just felt so blessed by that someone just took the time to write a little note on the back of a postcard and send it to me. It just warmed my heart.
Which was part of my intention. Is I don't do it enough either, just handwriting notes to people and popping it in the mail. And the postcards are nice because right now, the stamp's only 40 cents. So that it's very affordable. And I feel like I'm starting this movement amongst the Hebrew women to send cards again. And I've heard that from other ladies too. And I'm starting to get my own cards in the mail, and it's fun. Like, I don't even care. I'm like, oh, I made this card, but it's still like, it's so touching to know that someone took the time to handwrite out something too.
Yes.
So, and then I started making stickers. Oh, my lighting is terrible. Sorry, guys. They are vinyl.
Back them up a little bit. Oh, no, go bring them forward. I saw them at one point really well. Yeah, kind of right there. You can see it. Yep.
So they're not like flimsy little stickers. They're like vinyl stickers. And Jen, I love having stuff now. So when I go to the feast with my local body, I bless them with little gifts, because my local body takes care of me more than anyone else. Always give your most attention to your local body. So I sell sticker sets. I've been doing this for 3 months. So I have 3 sets of stickers, and this is an oldie but a goodie. I made this before COVID, BC. It's a Torah portion coloring book. There's 1 coloring page for each of the Torah portions. That one shows up good. And a lot of this stuff is like, you can download it or have me mail it to your house. This is one of my favorite things, but nobody's buying it. Sometimes I have ideas. I'm like, I think that's a great idea, but nobody else does. But maybe nobody knows about it. This is a Sabbath planning notepad. So there's places on here for like your prep day. It's like for prep day. So every prep day you use this, and maybe you use it all week, and then on prep day you execute, and then after Sabbath you tear it off and you have another one for the next week. So what are you going to eat on Shabbat? What cleaning do you need to do? What errands do you need to do? Stuff like that. Now, probably the best thing on my website is the magazines. So for a couple years, I had Torah Sisters magazine. And really my emails are the best thing. And this is how it all started. I started sending out, I would get so excited. And you guys, I'm sure I'm not unique. When you find someone out there who keeps Torah, and like they have a blog, or they have a little store, or they have a YouTube channel, and you just like want to eat it up, like, oh, what is it? It's new. It's someone who is like-minded with me. What do they have? What do they do? What do they say? What do they look like? And I would get so excited when I found that stuff. I wanted to tell the other Torah sisters. So I would post it onto my Facebook page. And then I really love email. So I'd be like, okay, I can send this out in email. It's kind of like an email magazine, a newsletter. And so the newsletter, the email is like a little magazine. But then people wanted a real magazine. So I made a real magazine. Here's 2 of the issues. And I mailed it to people's houses. And they could also download it. And you can download it. It's at torahsisters.com. Just follow links to the, it's a PDF that you can download. And these old issues are free. because there's 6 issues and they're older, but they're not outdated because this is like evergreen.
Yeah, the content is still very relevant.
Yeah, but you can download these issues for free. And I'm going to drop a little teaser. Keep your eyes out on my emails. Be watching my emails in the next 4 to 6 weeks. There might be something cool coming out.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing now. And I just love it. I hope the Father continues to bless me so I can just do this until I die.
Well, and I love, when we were, I think it was actually before Unleavened Bread, and I just think your humility and your trust in the Father speaks so much to your testimony, because when she got this part-time job, her fellowship was excited for her, but it wasn't long after that, I think her fellowship started feeling like she's supposed to be doing Torah Sisters. And Amy and I would sit down and brainstorm ideas during dinner after Shabbat, and just have these conversations, because it's so in her heart. And she says, I don't need a lot. If the Father can pay my bills, I'll do it. Right. It's not about, getting rich or any sort of fame or fortune, but just because of her love for Torah and helping women, just like Charlie. I mean, they're cut from the same mold, right? They're the same person, different people, same person. And they just have a real passion for helping women in this. And I think what Amy does is different than we do at the Rooted Cafe. I don't think they're in, like a bad competition with each other or anything. I don't want you to think that. What we offer in the Rooted Cafe is amazing. It is really hardcore educational content. We are courses and education and things like that. And Amy is just different. She's just, the things that she's looking to give are blessings and gifts and relationship and those types of things. Yes, thank you, Charlie. You're right. There's no competition in the kingdom. You're all working for the same goal, right? And anyway, I just love Amy's heart for that, because I think she's really genuine and very humble about it. And the Father's definitely blessed her. Like, just even in the last few months, the transition has been amazing to watch him moving in her life. She is a living testimony that if you're walking in the Father's will, you're going to be blessed. And I think that's great. So anyway.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. So yeah, I have a lot of stuff. I have a YouTube channel. I have a Facebook page. I have a partly active Instagram. I have all these things, right? The hardest thing that I have not yet figured out how to do well is what Charlie has figured out how to do well, and that is community, like actual community. So Charlie, you have a gift that I do not have, because this to me is overwhelming. And I just haven't figured out how to do it. So thank you for meeting that need in the community. I like to connect women, but like to actually have chats and a forum and all of that is a big undertaking. So thank you. So what I was going to talk about today, what I will talk about tonight, is a lot of the lessons that I have learned, even through this process, the stuff that Jen was describing about me in the last few months. Everything the Father brings me through, he teaches me lessons and grows me up and makes me hopefully wiser and smarter and more like my Savior. And when one of those things is that I am learning to consider, to not put too much value on the opinions of other people. I tend to do that way too much. And sometimes it holds me back from my kingdom purpose. And to not do what does Paul say? When you don't do what you know you're supposed to do, it is sin. And we don't like to think about that. We like to just define sin as in the Torah, and it's very black and white, and here's what it is. But there's a lot of things that are not in the Torah. Like the Bible does not say Amy has to do Torah Sisters. Like it doesn't talk about websites and stuff. But I know I'm supposed to do Torah Sisters, at least for now. I think our jobs can change. But really, I'm supposed to be home with my kids. And so that's why Torah Sisters, because it mainly keeps my focus on my kids. But for me to not do what he wants me to do is sin. And a big part of coming to Torah for me is realizing how much he hates sin and how much, I've wondered, and I don't dwell on things too much anymore, because the enemy likes to make us just wallow in our own guilt and feeling pathetic, because he just wants us always to be paralyzed. I am convinced the enemy hates it when we're moving forward and trying things and working hard towards a goal. He wants us always paralyzed and stuck in self-pity or worthlessness or self-disgust, whatever it is. But I do look back now and I wonder, I'm like, oh, if I'd have done this or done that, or cared less about what people thought of me, Torah sisters might have really gone bigger like this a long time ago. But it is what it is. I finally got my act together. Here we are now. So this is something that I've been thinking about now, as I talk about don't care about the opinions of others. It's not, I think we look at people who are behind a microphone. I call it like mic time, like someone who has a platform. That's not the goal. That's not my goal. And it shouldn't be our goal at all. Our goal is to just do whatever kingdom work the Father wants us to do. And so ways in which we can put the opinions of others too high, and when we're supposed to be pursuing something, some of those things we're supposed to be pursuing are even something like homeschooling. Homeschooling is something that for a lot of people, they don't do because they're worried about what other people will think about them. There are so many people coming to Torah. They don't, and I don't think the Bible says you have to homeschool. That is not what I'm saying. But I think in this day and age, I think everybody should homeschool, but it's not a sin. But as people start to feel that conviction, so let's say there's a family out there, they're new to Torah, they're realizing the icky Babylon that we live in, and they're feeling this desire now to pull their kids out of school. But what will grandma and grandpa say? What will their friends say? What will their kids say? So even homeschooling, and along that lines, I think even parenting, sometimes parents, we can care too much about the opinions of our children. And if it's holding us back from doing the kind of parenting that we need to do, then that is sin. We need to parent the way the Bible wants, the way the Father wants us to parent, regardless if our kids like it or not. And I know this is like common sense, but sometimes even I get stuck in that too. I'll be like, Jen knows I'm like one of the strictest women moms ever in the universe. I'm really strict.
Great mother with amazing children. You're doing beautifully.
Well, thank you. But I am strict. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, my kids are going to hate me. My kids are going to be embarrassed. I'm going to walk in there and make those other kids clean up that. And my kids are going to be embarrassed. And sometimes it's okay. Like it makes me sit back and think, but then sometimes I'm like, I just can't care. We have to do what is right. Oh, well. So that's a way that I struggle too. One way I think for some of us older ladies who have grown children, this is something I hear from time to time, is women we hold ourselves back because we think people think we're a loser. I talk very plainly. So people will think we're some sort of Torah loser if our kids are not walking in Torah. There's so many, probably some of you who came to Torah after you already raised your kids, and your kids are not keeping Torah. They're like 30 years old or even 16. They weren't raised in it. They don't understand it. They don't want to do it. And the parents can feel so judged and condemned in like their loserville that they don't step out and do the kingdom work that the Father wants them to do. And if that's you, I encourage you not to listen to those lies in your head. People probably don't think that anyway. And it's the enemy keeping you paralyzed. Maybe you are supposed to step up and do something in your congregation. And again, I don't mean just mic time. I mean service mostly, right? We're all supposed to serve and minister to one another and look out for one another. But we can feel so judged. We just want to be like a little wallflower, and we don't want to be noticed at all because people are going to find out my grown kids don't keep Torah. And
Amy, can I say something? Because
yeah.
you said something, and the word that just kept popping into my head was isolation. So when you're talking about like, well, you don't want to homeschool because people think you're weird, or you don't want, it's like we don't, okay, Torah will isolate us from certain people, certain groups. Maybe there are people who just are not meant to be sitting at our table for a time. And we have to understand that that's okay. So I think the reason we don't is because we don't like this idea of isolating ourselves from people who matter, whether it's family members or children. Like Amy was saying, I'm that mom who came into Torah with 3 grown children. My youngest is a junior in college. And early on, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't say anything because I didn't even know what it was. I didn't have a name for it. You know, I was afraid they were going to think I was, you know, in a cult and wackadoodle, because I wasn't sure I wasn't wackadoodle in the beginning. So I had to step back for a minute. But once I realized what the Father was pulling me into, I remember having this pivotal conversation of either you tiptoe around it and you're ashamed of it, or you walk in it boldly because you're confident that this is what the Father has called you to do. And that was hard. That's not always an easy thing to determine, too. But for me, I thought my children are old enough, and I have a daughter who, my 25-year-old, my oldest, actually has a degree in religious studies. And so I started sharing with her some things, and she was like, oh, yeah, that's why I didn't like certain things about church. There's so many things in it that are pagan, but everyone thinks they're religious. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, why didn't you ever tell me? She said, because you love church. I didn't want to do that to you. But she was a confirmation for me. But I think there's just like, if we're not confident to walk it out in the manner that the Father is telling us to do it, then I feel like that whole verse that comes into my head is we should not be ashamed of the gospel, right? That is the gospel. Walking out Torah is gospel. And so anyway, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just kept thinking isolation. Everyone is afraid to be isolated, to lose friendships, to lose family members. But you know what, Amy, I'm sure you can speak to this as a testimony. When we decide to stand up for what we know the Father's calling us to do, just like you did with your work, he blesses us abundantly, and the people that are supposed to be in our life will remain there.
Yep. Good word, Jen. And that isolation, then there are times that was a good word to key in on. See, and that's what the enemy wants. He does want us to be isolated. And so then we do come into Torah, and because we're afraid of being judged, we stay home and we don't do anything with anybody. And we use other people's judginess as an excuse for not getting out there. Like, you ladies are not doing that. You're here, you're engaged. In fact, I say hi, Kim. Hi, Kim Parker. I saw a name I know. But there are, I have talked to ladies who say even something like, you know, they have no fellowship near them. And when I press them, they'll say, well, there are a couple fellowships within a half-hour driving distance. I'm like, well, why don't you go? Well, one of them, they all have tons of children. They all believe in having tons of children, but we only have one child. And then she went into this whole long thing about why they only have one child. Like, I don't even care. That's not my business. Like, whatever. And even if you have different convictions about that interpretation of scripture, whatever. But she felt so judged by those big families. I said, have they ever told you that they judge you for only having one kid? Well, no, but I know they think it. I was like, no, they don't. Unless you ask them, you don't know they think that. They probably don't even care. So we can make these mountains out of molehills in our relationships and make it into something that keeps us isolated. Because when we're isolated, we're not fellowshipping. We're going to be weak and you know, all that stuff. So other ways in which we can feel that our kingdom work that we might feel judged on. First of all, ladies, I do not talk well. I talk good at a kitchen table, but like to give like a little talk makes me really nervous. So forgive me if I stumble. We can feel judged about whether we have money or don't have money. We're always making excuses, because I've been thinking about money a lot lately. There's been times where I've had money, and then lately I haven't had money. And we can make ourselves very uncomfortable in both situations, worried about what people think. If we have money and we get something or something, we worry, are people going to judge me for getting that thing? And if we don't have money, am I going to be judged for, are they going to think I'm lazy or unwise? People don't care. That's again, the enemy saying, stay home, don't engage with people, don't have meaningful relationships with people because they might find out you're rich or they might find out you're broke. Who cares? We just have to be much more ourselves, be much more vulnerable and engage anyway. And if you really think someone's judging or having a strong opinion, ask them. It'll be the hardest thing you ever do. But when you ask and you engage with that person, you say, all right, it's probably just in my head, but I feel like you're judging me because maybe you think I misspend my money. Is that just me, or is that a real thing that you want to talk to me about? Give them
Amy,
the opportunity.
I've got another one that I thought of as you were talking, and I know that this was me, so I'm going to say it, and I'm just going to confess it right now in front of my sisters, that in the beginning, I didn't want to go because I was afraid I didn't have enough knowledge,
Yes.
or that I didn't understand Torah. So, okay, I used to be a personal trainer. Those of you who don't know me, I was a big fitness buff, and I trained people for like 15 years. And I would always get the client that would say, well, I'm not in good enough shape for a trainer. And I would always be like, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You go to a trainer to learn how to exercise, but I do think we can feel like, but I don't know the Bible well enough, or I don't know Torah well enough, or, I haven't fully given up pork, or I don't really know how to keep Sabbath, or whatever. I mean, it could be all sorts of things. I still want to keep some of the, Christian holidays, or anything, but we can think we haven't arrived, that we can't put ourselves in fellowship. And I also think that is the work of the enemy. And to go along with what you said, Amy, it makes us care about what other people think. When the Father's calling us into this, we don't not go because we don't think we're holy enough, or righteous enough, or good enough.
Yes.
We go because we're blessed enough that he gave us people to be in community with.
Yep. Yeah, you got ahead of me on my notes, lady.
Oh, sorry.
But that's a huge one, and I have had ladies tell me that on the phone or in person, and they'll say, well, I can't go because I'm dumb. Like, I don't know enough. And honestly, ladies, I am that person. I will outwardly confess to you, probably every woman in here is a better student of the Bible than me. And that held me back with Torah sisters for a very long time. Everyone out there who does anything on the web is like, with Torah, is like these Bible scholars. And I'm not. Like, I don't even have the time. I don't even know like a lick of Hebrew. I can say shalom, and I look at these other people and I can really be intimidated, but I've realized I don't need all of that knowledge to do the mission of Torah sisters, because the mission of Torah sisters is not to teach. I can help, like, maybe disciple and mentor new women in Torah, and I do some of that on YouTube, but I don't need to know all this stuff. Someday when my kids are grown and I'm not homeschooling, I cannot wait to learn Hebrew and dive into things more. But we don't even do the Torah portions every week at my house. We're always like trying to work through the whole Bible. I don't have time to do all the things that everybody does, but I really feel strongly called to invest myself into Torah sisters, because that's maybe where my spiritual gifting is. So, and I had to get over that. So I'm like, I can't talk. I don't know things, but it's not, I have to stay in my lane. That's what I'm realizing. So another thing is, I'm gonna throw out a biggie. I'm not gonna go into it a lot, but adoption and foster care. I think we need to get ready. I feel like the Spirit is stirring me to start stirring up the body, that we need to be more open than ever to bringing foster kids and maybe babies and adopted kids into our homes, as uncomfortable as that sounds to myself as well. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready, but he's stirring me. So I'm going to start throwing that out there. And honestly, that's on my list here, because one of the things is, I'm like, because I feel it stirring in me. I'm like, oh, I could never do that. I'm a single mom. People are going to judge me. They're going to say a kid needs a mom and a dad. What are you doing, Amy? Well, a kid needs a parent, so right. What would my parents say? My parents would think that's so gutsy of me to do, but if they need a home, I mean, I'm better than nothing. So, but that fear of man is creeping up in my head. So I'm just going to throw that out there in case some of you are feeling that same stirring of the Spirit, especially with what's going on in the world today. What if 2 months from now, there's a whole ton of babies that need homes? We better be ready,
Amy,
and not care what people think.
This, but TRK has I think it's adoption and fostering calls with Gail Heaton. So that is something that is on Gail's heart too. And I'm not sure even what her background is to do that. Like, I'm not sure if she's fostered or adopted, whatever, but I haven't listened to the calls because that's not me. But I think that there's definitely a heart for a lot of women who feel that way, who feel a call, because like you said, Charlie said she's an adoption placement specialist, and I didn't know that, and she has 2 adopted children. So anyway, and Stacy's a foster home. Yay, Stacy.
Yeah, I know some of you are already doing it, and you look at the rest of us are like, oh, I'm so scared. And you're like, get over yourself. It's not that bad. Or sometimes it is, and we just do the right thing anyway. So the next thing on my list is this thing I'm going to talk faster now. 10-second Torah. When the Spirit puts something in me, Amy, you need to do this. If I don't do it within 10 seconds, I will talk myself out of it. And the number one way I talk myself out of that obedience is I'm worried about what people will think. Again, that fear of man, that, they're going to think I'm a Budinsky. They're going to think I'm being nosy, or they're going to think I'm stupid. I'm so afraid of people thinking I'm stupid. Here are some things that we internalize about what we imagine other people think of us. I'm just going to read this list and see if any of them click in your head to think and meditate on later. People might think I'm a show off. People will think I'm dumb or stupid. People will think I sound stupid. People will think I'm rich. They'll think I'm broke. They'll think I'm too old. I have heard that from women in the body. I can't do stuff. I'm old. They'll think I'm too young. We see that in the scriptures too. People will think I'm ugly. There are people who don't do their kingdom work because they're whatever. People will think I'm fat. People will think I don't know what I'm talking about. People will ask me questions that I don't know the answer to. People will think I'm too strict or I'm too legalistic. They'll think I have no business doing this because I'm a woman, or because I'm divorced, or because whatever. People will think what I'm doing is a waste of money. People will think I'm foolish. People will think my past is too messed up.
Oh, good one.
People,
Can
and
we
some of
pause
us
on
do.
that for just a second? Because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth to that people feel like if I start teaching, or if I start talking, or if I start witnessing, the people that knew me in my past life, they're all going to judge me because they know that side of me. Ladies, stop it. It's not true. Stop it, stop it, stop it. It's
And you don't even have to tell people everything about your past. You don't have to have that intimate of a relationship with everyone. Sometimes it just causes why? You don't have to. You can keep some things private. It's between you and the Father and whatever.
But I'm thinking, for me, people that knew me from my past life, and I've shared this on TRK before, with where I came from when I had kind of abandoned my relationship with the Father for 6 years and was walking in complete disobedience to everything. Then when the Father called me back into obedience, I felt judged by that entire community who was loving the Jen who walked in disobedience and thought, well, this one must be fake because we knew that one. And we can feel judged by that. So then we don't want to share our testimony, or we don't want to serve or reach out because they only know that old person who no longer exists, because now we're a new creation through Yeshua.
Yep. And that's on us to let that go. We have plenty of examples in scriptures telling us straight up, let it go. Plenty of examples of Yeshua saying, get up and just sin no more. Follow me. And the past is the past. And mostly it's in our heads. The older I get, I'm 46 and I'm starting to feel older and wiser. And I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, people are not thinking or looking at me hardly at all. I mean, I guess because I'm Torah sisters, but just on an otherwise regular basis, people are not looking at us. They don't care. They don't notice. We're all kind of wrapped up in ourselves, and we're not really out looking for the bad in each other. People generally are nice. And for me to let their concern of me hold me back is quite ridiculous. Our biggest barrier is not really that we don't have faith that he will enable us, but that other people's opinions matter more. And that is our biggest barrier. And really at the root of it, this is pride and ego. I'm not going to do what the Father is clearly putting in my heart to do because I'm afraid of how I will look. That is pride and ego at its root. And we all know you can't please everybody. I mean, goodness, I talk to Jen a lot. She knows my parents think I'm wackadoo, but I can't, cover my light anymore. I have to be all out there, and I am who I am. And if they're not going to like it and they're going to think I'm crazy, but oh well. And some of the stuff I do on Torah Sisters, some of you will think this is foolish or that is foolish. I can look at every single one of my friends, no offense, Jen, and think they're doing something wrong. I can look at every single one of them. Like she said, our fellowship is very diverse, a lot of different flavors, I call them. But I don't care. I don't think less of them. That one aspect, I think less. I don't respect that one aspect, but that doesn't mean I still don't hold the person in very high esteem. They're trying to walk uprightly and they're a nice person. What do I care? I'm sure I'm wrong too. And we talk about this all the time, about how we think of other people, but we also need to look at how do we feel about their opinions of us. Examples in the Bible of people who worry too much, because I haven't done a lot of scripture. So I'm not a huge fan of talks that are like topic based, but I did it. But I did pull some scriptures on this topic of verses. And when you start to feel the enemy lying to you, saying, you better not obey because people are looking at you, they'll think you're dumb or whatever. I put a link in the chat to a free printable. You know me, Jen, I got to make everything a printable and make it pretty with flowers. That list some Bible verses on this topic for you to read and meditate on later if you want. And then the blank page for you to add your own notes. And if you have a notebook, you can just keep it together. And throughout the years, when you start to feel the enemy saying, people are going to think you're no good, stop, be paralyzed, don't move forward, pull out those verses and add more of your own that you find. Of course, Moses was like, people are going to think I sound dumb. And God's like, so what? Move forward. And I was just reading Jeremiah. It starts the same way. I didn't realize it, but Jeremiah was like, I don't talk good and I'm not an old guy. They're not going to respect me. And God's like, get over yourself. I just think that's what he's been saying to me for so long. I've squished him. He's like, Amy, get over yourself. And Timothy, of course, Paul's like, don't let anyone think you're too young. Get over yourself. I'm going to say, do I have another couple minutes?
Oh yeah, you got 5 more minutes. Go for it. Keep rolling.
I think that I'm going to be really straight here. Straight up. I think that we're getting, either we're in the end times or we're getting close, all of that. And as we look at signs of the times and how God is going to be moving, we need to be ready to be weirdos. We need to be ready to do things that he calls us to do, even though people will think we are completely wackadoo, out of line, even sinning. And when we look at scripture, we see examples of this. And I see examples, I'm going to go through them in a second, examples of people doing things in scripture that us Hebrews in our community, a lot of us would say, oh, how could they do that? So here's an example. Okay, Daniel. Daniel is a great example of this because he was in Babylon in exile, the same as we are. This is where we are in history. We're in an exile situation. We're not in, a Torah keeping land. And Daniel, God put him in a place where he was like up to here, literally up to here in Babylon. And God even made him go to Babylon University. and it was part of the Father's plan for Daniel and for his people, was for Daniel to be in that position for multiple reasons. But nowadays in the Hebrew community, there's this idea that if you go to university, are you even a Torah keeper? Do you even love the Bible? Do you even read your Bible? How could you go to university? It's Babylon, it's worldly. How could you go there? There's nothing good there. Well, when I look at scriptures, Daniel had to go to university. And so, but it was part of the Father's plan. So the way I look at this is we're supposed to be set apart for sure, but not necessarily set away. And a lot of us because we want to obey, and we do want to be so set apart that we actually do sometimes want to be set away, but we're not there. Someday we will be set away in the land of Israel together with no enemies coming at us. But right now we're stuck, and some of us might be called to go to university. So, okay, I'm going to talk straight. Can I talk about the COVID stuff for a minute? Here's an example. Back when nurses like me were ready to fight against the vaccine and stuff, the people who came to their aid in a righteous way were the attorneys. And we were all thankful for the attorneys. Well, how do you get to be an attorney? You have to go to university. And I'm all for natural medicine, but sometimes you need a doctor or a nurse. How do you become a doctor or a nurse, or have certain talents like that, you have to go to university. I'm not for everybody going to university, and it's a very dangerous place, and you better be strong in your faith and be in a fellowship and don't live there. Like, there are precautions to take, but it's not, okay, here's another example. Esther, right? Esther went into this year-long beauty pageant, which we would say, oh, that's so worldly. Are you even a Torah keeper? And then she had to marry this gross king. So up to here in the worldly system, but it'd be like if some 20 something in our fellowship all of a sudden has to go marry Hunter Biden. We would all be like, kick her out. Do not fellowship with her anymore. But this is like kind of what Esther had to do. But it was for such a time as this. And I think a lot of us need to get ready for such a time like this kind of moments and not care what people think and be ready. Another person who God put right smack dab in the middle of the world system was Moses. Had to be raised in Pharaoh's household. I mean, how gross is that? Talk about Egypt up to here. But that was how God was going to rescue his people. The last example is Joseph. Joseph had to be put, again, right smack dab up to here in Egypt. It'd be like if I decided I was going to run for vice president of the United States. I think a lot of Torah keepers would turn their backs on me. Amy, that's a pagan system. How can you participate in a pagan system? Well, that's what Joseph was forced to do. And it was right where God wanted him in order to accomplish his purpose for such a time as this, to rescue his people. And so if we think that this second Exodus is coming up and it's going to resemble the first, we better be ready for people to be in a position that we consider disgusting Babylon. And it is. But to hold a position there to accomplish his purpose, I'm ready to go back to the hospital and do good. There's a lot of nasty stuff that happens in the medical community, but I want, if he calls me back there, I won't hesitate to answer him and go be a voice of good and righteousness and Torah. So this is one way that we have to, so it's the big things and it's the small things and it's everything in between. And as the times are getting darker and darker, even the little things that we do have ripple effects that we will never know. The kindness that we show, which is the heart of Torah, loving people, and maybe the big things, running for vice president or becoming an attorney or a doctor or homeschooling or bringing in an orphan, can have ripple effects for generations upon generations. But the things that would hold me back on any of those topics are the opinions of man. I'm getting pretty good in the courage department and the knowing that God can do anything. And there's lots of talks about that, but squishing my own concern in my heart about worrying about what other people think of me has been the hardest thing for me to get over myself. So I pray that we all keep becoming stronger women who just stop caring what people think. And there's things that we can do for each other, but that's a whole nother talk. But I can tell you all day long how wonderful you are. But if you don't believe it, if you don't believe me and you're all like, well, she says that, but underneath she's like judging me like crazy, then I cannot help you. And you'll never obey and you'll never do his purpose.
Or if you're saying it, but someone else is saying something contrary, that's the other thing too. We might have some people who are cheering for us on this side, and then on this side, we get the negative people who really, are saying the opposite, and we have to choose who we're going to believe. And I know Crystal had put in a comment, it flashed over my phone briefly, so I'm kind of paraphrasing, but I was thinking it as she was typing it, as sometimes we have to stop and ask ourselves whose opinion is more important. Because my mom, even today, she called me and she was a hoot. She's like, well, your sister encouraged me to start watching The Chosen. You really are a Jew. And I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about because I have not watched The Chosen. But I was laughing and I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she was just so judgmental. She's like, well, you do all the things those Jewish people do. And my mom has really struggled with my journey, but some days she's on board and some days she's not. And it was just the oddest comment. But my response to her now, every time she comes at me with anything like that, is, well, his opinion is more important than yours, right? Like that's all I have to say. And so we have to get to this place in our heart where we genuinely believe this. We believe that obedience to the Father supersedes what anyone around us thinks. And sometimes that's hard. I want my husband to be in alignment with me. And I am very fortunate that I have a husband who is incredibly supportive of my Torah journey. I know, even though he doesn't walk it, and I know a lot of you don't have that. but we always have to stop and ask ourselves about, who do we serve as
Can I
as
say
the top
something about that real
person?
quick?
Yes, and I know exactly what you're going to say.
Can I
A
say
hundred
it?
percent. I could say it for you, but you go ahead.
I'm going to say
It's
it. This is,
important, and I agree. So you say it.
I'm a guest here. What I'm about to say does not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of the Rooted Cafe, Charlie, or the other staff. um, and this is actually in my notes, but I just didn't get to it. So I invented a word. It's called yabbits. There's always a whole bunch of yabbits. Doesn't that sound like a Yiddish word? Yabbits. Like if I make a meme and it says, people can have a disagreement without anyone getting offended, because when you get offended, it's really your own choice. And then everybody starts leaving a comment, yeah, but what about this situation, Amy? Then I can be offended. So a yeah, but is an exception to the rule. And we often want to find yeah, buts. We want to find all the loopholes of reasons we don't have to do things, or reason that thing doesn't apply to us. We love the yeah, buts. For this topic, the one yeah, but that really, really applies here, and this is probably where you're going anyway, Jen, is the opinion of husbands. There are times, and in a half-hour talk, you can never hit every exception to the rule. There are exceptions to rules within Torah. So when we talk about, I'm going to do what the Father tells me to do, or really what I think the Father is telling me to do, regardless of anyone's opinions, the one opinion that does matter a ton is your husband's opinion. And if you're a young woman still living under your father's house, his opinion matters. Beyond that, though, I can't really think. And we should take counsel from people, and everything we do, and take wise counsel and accept that, and sit and stew and meditate on it. But in the end, there are some yabbits that matter and some yabbits that don't.
Yes,
Sorry.
and I
Go
will
ahead,
agree
Jen.
with Amy that I was in no way wanting to imply that we
Yeah.
just don't pay attention to our husbands and we disrespect them. I would never, ever, ever,
Yeah.
ever promote that.
I know,
And
because I know how you walk.
And I know that there are women who want yeah buts with their husband, like, well, yeah, but he doesn't, whatever. And I think we live it out and we honor it and we walk it. But my point is, like, for example, I've started dressing a lot more modestly, and I'm wearing more linen, and I'm doing things like that. And my husband would never say anything, but I'm pretty sure in his head he's like, where's all the sexy clothes? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Or something like that. So I'm just kind of like, but I think one of the things I've prayed about over the last year is having a little bit more modesty, and linen and cotton, because they're natural fabrics, and I think they're just healthier for my body. And so I'm choosing to do that because I'm feeling led to do it. And I'm not criticizing anyone who's not doing it, because I don't, again, like Amy said, I don't care what you do. And my opinion of what you wear doesn't matter, just like your opinion of what I wear doesn't matter. But I feel led by the Father to be more conservative. But sometimes I think about that. But my husband is such a sweet, kind man. If you've ever met him, he wouldn't say anything, right? He would just let it go. But I'm always thinking about where I feel like the Father's leading me, what he's saying to me, and I'm walking that out. And then if there's a conflict later, then I would address that with my husband, of course. But anyway, yeah, so there's that. So
one more thing, we always say Yeshua is our example. We're going to walk like Yeshua, and all these little things, not little, but these outward things that we do, the feast, the tzitzit, the eating clean. We all know now those are actually easy things. But when we look at Yeshua as our example, that man, God Almighty, did not care what people think. He was going to do the will of his Father who sent him, no matter what. But he did do it, and this is also our example, with meekness and humility. So when we carry out these things, we're not going to do it with a haughty, prideful, arrogant, like, I'm doing it no matter what. He did it with meekness, humility, compassion, but he always did his Father's will. And there are examples, again, I didn't have time, where you see his disciples saying to him, good grief, you don't care what anyone thinks. He's like, yeah, oh well, I'm gonna do my Father's work.
And I agree that is obviously the goal, but I think about that and I always think, wow, but he was the Torah in the flesh, right? So he knew it inside, outside, upside, downside. And sometimes I still question myself. So for the women out there who are like, oh, but I don't, it's hard to be that example, because sometimes I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. There's grace in that. And you have a community of women right here, like Amy said, with the Rooted Cafe. I'm sure if you're here, and I know most of the names that are on here, you know that you're loved, and we are not a place that wants to judge. We are a place that wants to lift you up and walk alongside you. That is the goal of the Rooted Cafe. That's why it was started. We constantly pride ourselves on saying we are a safe place. And, as one of the Facebook administrators, I know I've had to, people out because they just don't want to provide a safe space, and they do want to be critical. But it's really important to us that, when you're here and you're part of this community, you're like family, and we're not here to judge you. We may, pull you aside and say, hey, let's talk. But the goal isn't to judge, but just to come alongside as we nurture each other. And I want to say one more thing before we get off to Amy, because, as you were talking about, like, kind of whether you believe we're in end times now or 20, 50, 100 years from now, whatever, every day is closer to the end. But I feel like we should live like we're there. And you had talked about being set apart. And I think it really resonated with me when you were talking about that. And what came into my head was, one of the things that's hard, we were talking about isolation and caring what people think, is that if you're set apart, you're not going to look like everybody else. And so I just want you to stop and think about that. Like, really think about the fact that if you look like everybody else, chances are there's something you're not doing right, because the world is going to grow darker, and we need to be growing in our light. And like Amy said, she doesn't want to let that light be hindered anymore. We have to have that attitude, because we need to be the light for the rest of the world. And it doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean we look down on other people. It doesn't mean any of that. But if they're trending this way and we're going this way, we're going the wrong way. We're supposed to go the narrow way, which means we go this way when people go that way. So with a lot of things that are, we can look at the whole, well, anyway, I don't want to get political, but we can look at things that are happening in the world, and what's going on in current legislation right now, and what people are choosing to fight for and not fight for. And we know that good will become evil, and evil will become good in the eyes of people. And so we're going to look like the evil ones, but we have to be building our faith and our belief and our love of Torah and Yeshua to make sure that we are steadfast. He has to be a priority. He has to be number one, and his opinion has to matter more than other people's, because I don't know about this, but Amy said in the beginning, people told her that, you told someone, you've fallen from grace. One of my dearest friends told me that now, and she's now walking in Torah, which is hysterical to me. I love that the Father did that, because she was so worried about me, sending me videos all the time, because I've fallen from grace and I've lost the Messiah and I'm going to hell and all this stuff. But I couldn't care, even though she was one of my best friends, and she was hurting for me, like painfully hurting. It was like, but I'm being led, and so I have to keep going.
Another thing that we have to remember is, as we're feeling the Father calling us and nudging us to do this or to do that, is that sometimes we're going to get it wrong. Sometimes we hear him wrong, we misinterpret, and sometimes we blow it. I blow it all the time. And sometimes I do look dumb, and I just have to not care. Because sometimes if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to look dumb sometimes. I don't care anymore. Well, I do. I'm getting over it. I'm getting better. But whether it's you feel the Spirit nudging you to go show up at a young mom's house and offer to spend the afternoon with her, helping her catch up on her laundry and stuff. And you're like, oh, but I don't want to be a Budinsky. Go and offer. And if she says no, you're not really going to look dumb. She's just going to think you're the sweetest lady in the universe. She just doesn't need your help. But even something like that can be so meaningful if she does actually want your help. But, we have to be willing to look dumb. And it's not the end of the world. Even if you choose to homeschool, you bring your kids home, it is like the biggest dumpster fire ever, and you can't fix it. Put them back in school. We act like every decision is the end all be all. Things are usually not actually set in stone. And if it turns out that we went a little off the wrong direction, we can redirect and come back. But to do things that are meaningful in the kingdom, small or big, which I don't think there is anything small, that's why I put it in quotes, we have to be willing to look dumb and to always say, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back. So that's all I got. Thank you, Jen.
No, I agree, Amy. That was a great way to end it too, because that's true. Our decisions are not final. And, sometimes, and some of you will know what I'm talking about when I say this, we really feel called in a direction and we go that way, and then something happens and we realize I can't do this right now, or this can't be right because it's just not working, or there's pain or something involved, and you feel like you have to switch course. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't mean that you made a bad decision, and it doesn't mean that it's forever. But sometimes you have to step back from the things, even if you feel called, and you have to reevaluate. And I think that that's important. And Charlie said the other day on an interview, and I'm paraphrasing her, but I think I got it right, is, she reserves the right that this is what she knows now, or something like that, right? And she reserves the right to basically change her mind, or this is what I feel like is the truth today. But he keeps leading me, he keeps moving me, he keeps, I keep going forward. Or my understanding today is, thank you, my understanding today is, and my understanding tomorrow might be a little bit different. And so I think one of the things is because so many of us are new to this. I mean, some of us have been in it, 20 years, whatever, in this group. But for most of us, we're a couple years new. We're still babies, and there's still so much we're learning. And we know the Torah is layer upon layer. And so we extend grace to one another, which is why we don't judge, right? We don't judge others for where they're at. We don't judge people who aren't doing things the way we do them, because, well, one, we're family, but two, it's important to extend grace and come alongside people because we're all learning. And I know that we have this just with Passover. So many of the women in here were like, well, what if I do it wrong and somebody does it this way and I don't know how to do it and I can't do it right, and I might as well not even do it at all. And we just beat ourselves up. And stop. Like, whatever you do, and I think Amy might have been someone who said this to me, whatever you do this year, or whatever you did this year was probably what you were supposed to do. Next year, maybe you're going to do it differently, because my understanding today is, right? But my understanding next year might be something different. And anyway, I know we're over time, but I could just talk to you for hours, Amy. It's so fun.
We can do that on Saturday.
Yep. You'll see me. I'll see you tomorrow, and hopefully on Shabbat. But here's the thing too, if you haven't been on Torah Sisters YouTube channel and you're looking for practical answers to things, and I just have to share this, it's a really fun way to end. One day at Shabbat, we were just chatting and we got into, what does the Torah say about having intimacy with your husband on Shabbat? And Amy's like, that's a Torah Sisters video. And I'll be darned, the next week she had looked at it, and because people just want simple answers like that. And so she's not the deep Torah study like what you get on a Friday or whatever. Well, I think ours are pretty practical actually, but we think of a Torah study, but she's like sitting at the table with your best friend having a conversation, just like a couple of girls having small talk. And so her videos are inspiring and wonderful and will bless you. So get on her YouTube channel, subscribe, check out TorahSisters.com. Oh, Amy, one more thing. I know we're over, but you did a group finder map. Now, I want to say that the Rooted Cafe has a sister finder. So where the ladies on the portion, or I think it's the portion, maybe it's just the Rooted Cafe, but they can plug in where they live so we can find sisters that live close. But Amy, you've got something a little different that you created for Torah Sisters. It's a group finder, correct? Can you just share 1 minute on that?
Yeah. If you go to my website, TorahSisters.com, you'll see, like, I don't know, the group finder or something. And there's ladies around the world who have ladies groups, local in-person groups. And so I encourage them to, they fill out the form and then I put them on the map. They're not like official Torah Sisters, anything, like I don't have anything to do with them. But I think sometimes it's easier for ladies to get together than for families to go to a Shabbat fellowship. So as you all know, so yeah, if you are looking for more ladies that might not know about Cafe, but they might be listed on my website, go look at that. And if you have a local ladies group that anyone is available to join, put it on my map. The more maps, the better. In fact, on that page, I'm going to start compiling on that page a list of all the other website ministries that have maps. So, because there's getting to be about 5 or 10 or 12 of them.
Yeah, that's true. We can't have too many maps, but I think Amy's is a little bit more towards groups, and you can find groups or put your group on there so other people in your community can find you.
Yep.
For women, yep. And then for the Rooted Cafe, it's a sister finder, so you can travel around and see people in your, who's within 2 hours of you can go you can go visit and fellowship with. And it's funny because I found Marcia Merrifield that way, and Kim Parker, who's on this call. I don't know if Marcia's on or not, but you know, and now we Shabbat together once a month. And I wouldn't have found him if it wouldn't have been through the Rooted Cafe and the Portion. So this is how we connect. These ministries, Torah Sisters, the Rooted Cafe, this is how we're connecting women. And we need to be connected because we are stronger and better when we are together. So please just stay connected to both groups. We need each other right now. So, and I know we're over and I have to go, but Amy, thank you so much for your time. Oh, hey, Marcia. So one more quick thing. I've missed everyone. I have been like totally out of the loop for a month. Marcia and I went on a foraging journey today. And someday Marcia and I are going to get on a call and we're going to talk to you about our foraging experience because it was super cool. We found like 26 plants that are like edible today. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because she's on, but all right, well, we're going to sign off, but ladies, we love you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching the replay, thanks for popping in and thanks for sticking with us till the end. Check out Amy at TorahSisters.com and have a wonderful rest of your week. Tomorrow's Friday, prep day, and then we got Shabbat to look forward to. So have a great one, everyone, and thank you for joining.